Okay, thank you, staff, councillors and public for attending. We'll open the meeting. It's now 5 o'clock. In accordance with the Local Government Meeting Regulations 2015, the public is advised that the proceedings of the meeting of council will be recorded on digital media to assist in the preparation of minutes and to ensure that a true and accurate account of debate and discussions of the meeting is available. Acknowledgement of country. West Coast Council acknowledges the traditional custodians on the land in which we gather today and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, item 170 of the meeting is apologies, everyone's here, no leave of absences. Financial interest, this time of the meeting, if anyone has a financial interest in any agenda item on the agenda may declare that now or at the time of before discussion during the meeting. Confirmation of the minutes. Minutes of the ordinary meeting of West Coast Council held at the West Coast Council Chambers Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, a copy of which is having previously been circulated to councillors prior to the meeting being confirmed as true and accurate record. Someone like to move that way, please? Move Councillor Ivanicky, second to Councillor McKay. Put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, public participation and question time. So we allow 15 minutes of the meeting for the public to ask any questions. These must be in the form of questions and will not be debated on. And we just ask if the person asking the question can give their name and address before they ask the question. Have we got any questions from the public?
Two three trees there in my way. I just want to know about the boundaries for the new proposed boundaries. I have a meeting here before we come up with one from Savage River to Strathcorden, and the other alternative by the government was the Sard Bower. I want to know if there's any proposals been put, and have they been costed like risk-benefit analysis, that sort of thing? Do we know what we're getting into?
Yes, please.
So at the moment, there is a local government board. So this is an independent board set up by the state government, and they're looking at a range of proposals, including proposals that come from councils or community members or other groups. So you spoke about two of them, but there are a range of others. There's one other proposal from the board that includes merging West Coast Council, Circular Head, Waratah, Wynyard and King Island. At the moment, they're asking for community and feedback on those proposals. They're asking for council staff feedback on the proposals, and they're asking for councillor feedback on those proposals. So there's surveys and things like that out there. They're doing that as part of their cost-benefit analysis and risk analysis on those proposals. So this is the process that's happening at the moment to figure out which proposals have the best relationship to the community, which proposals are best financially, and what the risks are around the proposals. So that's the work that they're doing now, and they will provide a report to government in September saying what they think the best way forward is. They'll probably choose one of the three proposals, but they might recommend something completely different as well. And then the state government will consult on that again. So at the moment, it's a group of people, experts, that are putting together that risk analysis, that cost-benefit analysis.
And is there any serious consideration being given to stay as we are or not?
It is. I don't think that's likely because of the financial sustainability if we stayed as we are. There'd need to be some changes to how councils could do rating for that to occur. So I don't think it's likely, but it's an independent board, so they could recommend anything, and I'd encourage any community member or councillor to put forward their views to the board. And if you think staying as we are is a good option, certainly should you should certainly put that to the board, because it is really important that everyone gets to have their say. don't know if you want to add any more to that, Mr. Mayor.
No, I guess, and that's, I guess that's the main thing, is that we get that word out that, for people to do the survey or do put submission. Yeah, it is awkward, but even that, even if you just put a submission into the local government review, just an email or to them, and they'll that is a submission. So they will take submissions all the way up to the 2nd of August.
Yeah, I don't think we've got much often saying as we are anymore. We've been talking to Warrior when you council and me,
Yep.
and they look at Glory the West Coast, so there's big councils outside here looking at us.
Yeah, so when you Waratah, spoke to the mayor on the weekend, and both, I'm sorry, not the weekend, last week, and both of them are looking at that scenario too, which is them amalgamating and us staying as we are. Well, staying not as we are, but an entity in our own right. But
Taking Savage and comes out.
yes,
And it is really important, it's not just about boundaries as well.
No.
There's a lot in there about what councils actually do. So I certainly would encourage anyone to look at some of those other changes. They might not seem as dramatic as boundary changes, but increasing the role of councils in health and wellbeing is a really large change. Having much more shared services is a big change. They were talking about things like merging council customer service with Service TAS, for example. So there's a lot of, the boundary changes have taken up all the attention, but there is a lot of other really big changes in there.
okay, thanks.
Scott Newitt, Seven District Storm. I didn't think it appropriate to ask the questions from the meeting, but with respect to the Union Steamship Company building, would council be prepared to provide all the engineering reports and access to the building to interested community members?
It would depend on how many community members and that type of thing, because obviously we need to manage safety.
I don't mean the whole community, I mean there's going to be a
Should
be available and have a look, that's all
Perhaps I can answer it this way. Whenever there's been people interested in potentially taking over a building or doing something on a building, we've facilitated their access to it.
And the reports that we missed, would they be available to those interested
Yeah,
parties?
they're public reports. So.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Another one, with respect to the building again, as for the Galley Museum, which is a magnificent multi-storey building also, would council be would they be dedicated to provide some kind of support to this group? Not talking financial, but if this group kicks off, would they provide some support as needed? I'm not sure what that term of support is yet, like they do. I'm not talking like maintenance to the galley and things like that. I'm just talking, I guess some inertia behind that group, in a positive way. So no reason why not.
Council has an in-kind assistance policy, so we follow that policy.
Great.
Yeah.
And does that mean we have 15 minutes to ask more questions, or is it like that way they asked
You can add
otherwise I've had 2 questions. So I apologise for that.
There's 15 minutes in total for all members of the public.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
So is that a yes to both? Yes.
Well, it's whenever we've had groups in the past, we've always been able to facilitate it, but it would depend on the specific
Yes.
request.
I'm talking a core group. I think one of the councillors mentioned 4 people worked on the building in Hobart, and I'm not expecting multitudes of people to go there, but certainly there's some.
We routinely let people into access buildings. That's not unusual, so I'd suggest just making a request, and we'll do our best. In terms of financial and in-kind assistance, councils.
I didn't say financial, I just said in kind. So
Yeah, so we have a financial and in-kind assistance policy. Council staff follow that policy. So all I can say is we would assess any application
Yeah, okay.
based on that policy.
So I won't dismiss financial.
And any other assistance outside of that has to come to councillors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, that I can't tell you what they would do or not do.
Yeah. Okay. No other questions? We got no questions, written questions? No. Okay, item 174, council rate issue and information. There's no questions on notice. Any questions without notice, councillors? No questions without notice. There's no motions on notice. Any motions without notice, councillors? No motions without notice. Okay, we'll keep moving then. Item 175 is Mayor and Councillors' diaries and communications. For noting that the Council resolved that the Mayor and Councillors' diaries and communication as presented be noted. Any discussions on any of them matters, councillors? I'd just like to comment on that grit event at the Paragon, that we've got some the short film that was done by the West Coast people, the people here on the West Coast, was quite a good event, and it proves that we have got some artists out there with national accreditation there. So
Yeah, it
it's
was very
really
good.
good to see, and I guess that's come on the back of what the Bay of Fires have done for our community, and the bridge, and also Alone, and of course the tailings as well, that started all these events on the West Coast. So it was a good event. Okay. Item 176 is for noting also the Council resolved to note the following workshops were conducted by Council since the last ordinary meeting. So we had an additional budget workshop on Sunday the 4th of June, and today, Tuesday the 27th of June, we had rates, Cradle Regional Land Use Strategy. We had a presentation from Mr Newitt on the Union Steamship Building, Queenstown Park Run presentation, and Women's Health Tasmania presentation. No discussions on any of that, councillors? Item 177 is Council's decision, status and action item list. The Council resolved that the status report action item and open meeting decisions be received. So I've still got two pending there from myself to write to Ms Gallagher. I did speak to her, but I will write in a correspondence with regard to that. Any other discussions on any of them items, councillors? No. Okay. Item 178 is committees of council resolved that the council committee reports as presented be noted. So we've got one there from the Emergency Management Committee regarding the Wear Orange Day on the 17th of May, and also the Queenstown Fire Brigade had an open day on the 21st of May. Any discussions on that?
How are our fire brigades going for volunteers at the moment?
Struggling?
Storm Brigade's just had a bit of a ramp up to try and get some volunteers, but no coming forth at this point.
So that open day in Queenstown was a successful event. I think they may have picked up 2 volunteers from that event, which was good.
And how's Rosebery going, Scott?
Struggling.
Talar's gone, obviously. Zian again is up and down, but they're struggling. They're pretty much struggling. They can't put a crew on. So.
Rosebery's really short. Some of our guys from Queenstown are actually working Rosebery as your members.
Yeah.
With some support through the day.
So I guess, and Tas Fire are working on strategy around that too. So
Something we've certainly noticed through the census, like volunteer numbers on the West Coast dropping off, which is concerning. And we are hosting a bit of a volunteer forum that's to provide some support to volunteer groups as well, to try and help with their recruiting efforts and that type of thing. But yeah, anyone who's got good ideas on how we encourage volunteers, particularly into the emergency service roles, would be gratefully appreciated.
now we didn't do anything for Volunteer Week, but I did ask the question, were we going to do something?
At this forum, we've got volunteers tax coming down
Right.
to do some of that stuff and encourage engagement with volunteers, so it's included as part of that.
Yep, okay. And we'll maybe just thank the volunteers and add that event, and we might be able to promote a little bit better, a bit more volunteering. Yep. Okay, also we've got the Education and Training Committee report around the Pathway Scholarship Fund and Regional Training Fund. That's been extended to October. Any other discussions on them, councillors?
Through you, Mayor, 46 applicants. That's brilliant for the scholarship pathway.
It is.
And that's across a broad range of scholarship opportunities, which is
It
That's
is.
exceptional.
And
That's
I
really
guess the main thing around that, it is early childhood care and childcare,
Wow,
early childhood learning and childcare.
Yeah, we've
that's a
I've
lot
seen
of
them recently, which is really good.
That'd be great. if
And I
someone
guess
does that.
that's been promoted a fair bit by the study hub as well, so.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a little bit disappointing we haven't been able to spend all the money as quickly as we originally thought. But we have been through a period with COVID where there's been such a tremendous amount of free training that a lot of people haven't needed as much support, or business haven't needed as much support with training costs. So you've seen things like the UTAS Job Ready certificates, fee-free TAFE, and even some of the short courses coming to the West Coast have been a lot. We are working with the state government now to figure out a project to wrap up the use of that money. So we'll be trying to come up with a couple of larger projects that the state can use the remaining funds for, because our grantee does run out at the end of the year. So we're working with them now, and when we get something out of them, we'll present it to ETC and to council if it's a major change. But it'll be in the same area. It'll just be a little bit more flexibility for us.
So the end of the year is the end of this financial year? Or?
October.
No, yeah, grant finishes in October.
I guess the disappointing thing, well, not disappointing, but the thing that we haven't seen a lot of is local businesses applying for the grant funding to assist with training some of their employees. So that's
It may be very well indicative of the fact that they can't get employees.
maybe too.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, councillors. Item 179 is the General Manager's report. The recommendation is that the General Manager's report as presented be noted. Someone like to move that way for discussion, please. Move Councillor Newman, seconded Councillor Butterfield. Open for discussions, councillors.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Looking at the capital works update, it was really disappointing to see that we didn't get any tenders for the Rosebery or Strong playgrounds.
Yes, we went back to the drawing board on that with our designers, and are they back out now?
Again?
Yeah, so
Is our money not good? Is that it?
people, it is a
It's
very
too much
tough
work.
market for getting construction tenders at the moment, particularly on the West Coast, just because construction firms are really busy. And we had to rejig a little bit the structure. There was a covering structure in the Rosebery one, and that might have discouraged a couple of the smaller playground builders. So we've rejigged that a little bit with the designers to give it the possibility of it being a more off-the-shelf shelter solution. And we are directly engaging to drum up more
And
interest.
Also, in that vein there, through you, what do you think our chances are of getting anyone to tender for the gym redevelopment in Zeehan then?
And Strong.
It's going to be, it is,
Yeah.
I think that one will be a little bit easier because it's more standard construction, so it is more standard building construction. It's also a slightly bigger project. But yes, it will be tough. I think,
My point is not to grill any of the staff, just it's so disappointing, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like,
A lot of work, isn't it?
you know, we've put so much time and effort into developing these things, the community gives us input. So I'm wondering, can we at least go back to those communities and let them know what's happening? Because it is really frustrating when I'm answering questions from the community. Well, you said, we went to the playground meeting 12 months ago. What's going on with the playground?
yeah, yep, okay. We'll put an update in Mayor on Air and things like that.
So I have had discussions with people that come and ask me about the Zeehan gym. I said, well, went back to Dave and asked, where things are at, and that's when I come back and we're still waiting on engineer design.
I think we're pretty close now. It's just waiting for the bushfire engineer person. I think that's.
Yeah, there's only been 2 in the state qualified for that site.
Yeah, so for all these type of projects, there are long wait lists, particularly on the engineering side, particularly when you get to specialist engineers. And there's not many weeks that go by where our staff are not harassing those people to do things as quickly as they can. Because the main problem for us, say with the gyms, is we received that as an election promise 4 years ago. The cost of doing things has not decreased in that 4 years. So the main risk to council is that when we do go out for tender, the costs far exceed the grant funding, and we need to either reduce the scope significantly or put in our own money. So that's a real risk, and but we don't face it alone. I certainly know that the state government really struggled to get tenders for the hospital upgrades. They struggled to get tenders for the ambulance station upgrades and other things as well. So it's just the cost of doing business in remote areas, and we don't get any extra money to do it.
Page 22, typo.
Page
That's right.
22.
That's right.
Councillor Leo.
I
Yeah.
guess one thing I'd like to just highlight is the West Coast information, Tasmanian visitor information, that the Visitor Information Centre went to that forum, and that they used our branding. So Gabriella Contini, West Coast, West by Northwest CEO used our branding as part of her discussions there, so which was really good in presentation. So
And he can probably talk more about this, but the West Coast and Northwest is leading the way in tourism development, and certainly DWC's
So,
successful entry
yeah, so yes,
for Queenie.
yeah,
That.
with the Queenie,
With the Queen's Down entry and
Yeah.
so was second again.
yeah, so
Again,
Just
Dave.
Stanley, we had a little bit of trade-off and a stouch.
Page
Sterling
24.
Stanley for Tassie
Rates
Finance
so we're on
Tourist
from
Account.
2021.
So we've failed to do that. Yep, through you, Mem, I'd ask you a question, please, on the finances on page 24, regarding the rates owing from the previous years. Can I have a bit more detail to that, please?
On which section, like the percentages?
On the
Percentage?
bottom table, on page 24, the rates owing from 22-23, but then 21-22 is 42%, 20-21 is 38%.
so that's of
Is that outstanding?
outstanding.
So that when you take the total outstanding amount, which is very low, then that's the years.
That's the breakup.
Yeah,
of
just so you
what's
can
owing.
just so you can see how old our debt is.
Right.
So you can.
It's not 38% of rates owing.
No. So you take the.
21
So when you look at the rates owing, it's minimal. It's very net. It's very small. The reason that's in there is because for several years council had a very long tail of debt, and most of that has been cleaned up over the last couple of years, particularly with the unpaid rates auctions, which have cleaned up a lot of that debt. So that's just so you can see that we're managing our debt.
Excellent, thank you, thanks for bringing that up. Another question for you there, the CAPEX update on page 47, the heavy plant replacement has a red flag for a non-delivery. Can I have a bit more detail around that?
Yep. So council selected a tenderer. That tenderer did not fill their tender requirements. It went back out, and we've got another. We're inspecting another machine, but it won't happen this. Won't happen this one.
Landfill compactor.
Landfill
Yeah.
compactor, isn't it? Yeah.
So council awarded the tender to a company. That company has recently said that they cannot fulfil that tender. We've gone back out. We've identified another machine using the same terms and everything like that. So under our procurement policy, once a tender's failed, we can do a direct procurement as long as it's under the cost. But we went out for tender anyway, and I think where are we up to with that? This is still inspecting the machine to make sure it's going to work.
Yes, obviously, just following up, the tender we received initially, due to local government's process, the timing in between processes proved. They sold the machine that they offered us, so they said they could get another one. We give them 3 months, they couldn't get another one. So as David said, through the procurement policy, now I've done a bit of homework, and there's one available in Melbourne via Indonesia. That could be a possibility, so we're just sussing that out at the moment to see if that's available.
What's the capacity?
That's a CAT 38 tonne, a little bit bigger than what we initially put out for tender, but it's under the award tender price. So.
Might be better off then.
For you.
Yes,
Sorry.
councillor, you're all right, don't be sorry.
Page 54, the vandalism report. Why on earth do people want 5 slippery when wet signs?
Yeah.
Is there something about slippery when wet signs?
It's down Trial Road, Luana and Machead, so I'll leave that to you, councillor, what the people down there are stealing signs for,
And
but
the bin at People's Park, how can people steal a bin?
they stole a shed. Do you remember they stole a shed?
Shed, stuff, shed, yeah.
Even if it's bolted down, they'll steal it. Well, I mean, we've had a very long run of very low levels of vandalism. May was not a good run for vandalism. We had quite a few.
And it is highlighted around most councils, and Glenorchy is probably one of the worst in Tasmania at the moment, the amount of vandalism that's happening in that community. They've got major issues with a lot of their infrastructure being vandalised.
We fare very well on
We do.
vandalism. We really do.
Yep.
And I've just got one more, sorry, Mayor, through you. Page 66, the Eco Dev report.
Yep.
Where the information session that was held by TCCI and Workforce Australia, has there been any movement on following the meeting of interest of a Chamber of Commerce?
No, we went out to all the participants and other businesses to ask if anyone was interested in setting up a Chamber of Commerce. We received 0 responses, and therefore we put out a thing saying the outcome of that EOI was that we weren't going to progress a Chamber of Commerce at this stage. So there was no.
So who was that communicated to?
There was an email come out for those that were in attendance, I think.
Yeah, I saw an email somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's those in attendance or whether it was we got one as councillors.
And I think we ran a
Yeah.
general survey as well, to see if people were interested. I'd have to ask the team exactly who that went out to, but we've had no interest post the workshop of anyone actually being involved in a Chamber of Commerce. We've only had, there was a couple of people that said they thought it was a good idea, but they weren't able to be actually involved in one at this stage. So then I guess the question for council is, do you try and progress that as committee, noting that it takes quite a bit of resourcing to do that, or do you progress a different committee? We haven't presented a recommendation to council yet, but we will. We'll recommend most likely that council set up another committee in the disadvantaged space somewhere, rather than pursuing a Chamber of Commerce, given the lack of interest. Because looking around the state at Chamber of Commerces that have worked, they really need to be business led. So it doesn't matter if you're a small population. King Island has a great Chamber of Commerce. Council's not involved in that at all, and it works really well. I don't think council trying to force the issue would lead to a good outcome. And we do have a whole bunch of other things that we can get on and do. Like we were talking about earlier today, we've got very poor determinants of health, a lot of literacy problems, a lot of entrenched disadvantage, and the recommendation most likely will be we either work on that or we focus on youth, coming out of the youth strategy.
It's interesting that people had pushed for that and then there was no interest following.
Exactly, and that's exactly what my thoughts were too, councillor, that we went out of our way to set this up for the business community, given that there was some interest, and then when it come to the crunch, they all went and hid as such. So very
Noting that too, Mayor, we've got 2 more workshops planned, one in September and one in October around business attractions of staff, and another one for retention of staff, which I would probably align with some of those
so we'll keep
projects we're trying to get going.
That's right.
We'll keep trying to facilitate stuff to support small businesses coming in. I mean, the other thing is that it's been great to see DWC's actually had an uptick in membership and people interested in that. Granted, it is primarily tourism focused, but We also don't want to push something else and cannibalise something that is happening organically.
But there were quite a few people in the room that day, so
Yeah.
it was quite surprising.
It is, yeah.
Volunteering your time, 3-year mayor. No one's got time. You can't get volunteers in any sector, can you? No, we just can't.
And it is a credit to the DWC committee at the moment with their tick up what's going on in that space, so well done to that
A
group.
mighty nice walk builds that.
Sorry?
A mighty nice walk builds that.
Yeah.
The iconic walk.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, having a big project helps.
Yeah.
And maybe in the future we'll be able to get grant funding for something, a Chamber of Commerce type project, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's it, councillors, no other discussions, okay, item one, oh, sorry, did we need to move?
Yeah.
No, we did move.
So you need
You just
Yeah.
need
To
to
a
move
vote,
it.
all those in favour? Against, carried. Outstanding advocacy correspondence. Replies that are not yet received, council resolved that the outstanding advocacy correspondence as presented be noted. That's getting fairly extensive now.
We did get one. We got a reply from one of the mines, didn't we? Two. Who did we get? It
So
was
we got one from,
Renison.
Renison.
Stone, and we got one from Avebury, just today.
Is that the roadside
On
litter
roadside
response?
litter, Yes,
And favourable or?
well.
Yeah,
Bluestone.
they don't like litter. They're not favourable towards litter, but they're happy to help out.
And they are discussing with their employees. I don't know, I haven't seen the Avebury one, but I know from the Renison one, or Bluestone one, that they have discussed with their employees, putting some mitigation in place in their car park to try and mitigate some of it. And they're willing to start or do a campaign with involving the schools around some clean up the roads, but we need to get some permits organised through state growth for that. So I have discussed with state growth what the process is around that, so they're willing to put the all the safety equipment in place and the traffic controllers that's required to do that event.
3-year mayor, I remember last time we campaigned pretty heavily, Bluestone were favourably on board as well, so they were the only ones that assisted us last time.
I guess the other thing, we did canvass with State Growth recently about getting them to get the contractor more engaged in picking up some of the rubbish on the road, given that's
their job.
duty. Yep.
The most important thing with all of that is to anyone who talks to you in the community, remind them that there is a number you can call, there is the litter reporting app.
Yeah.
That it's really difficult for us to hit up state growth and they say that there's no reports of litter on the West Coast, so then they're not going to take any action. So it is really important that those reports go in. Same with any defects in the road surface, because we'll ring up state roads and say we want something done on the road between here and Zion, and they'll say, well, there's no outstanding defects. So we really...
There must have been some report given to Downer because they were on the road from Rosebery to Tulla last week.
Yep.
In that
Yep.
up, so, and it is no disgrace, that road.
That would probably be a result of our meeting with the
Yes.
2IC of state growth
Yeah.
that we were talking to in our workshop last.
That's it.
She said she'd have a red hot go at doing something about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So unless it works.
Yeah, if you put in complaints, it works. So put in complaints.
Okay, item 181, correspondence. The council resolved that the correspondence, both incoming and outgoing, as presented, be noted. So we've got no correspondence for any response, unless there's any councillors that like to
Through there,
yes.
just noticed there the letter from George Massery on page 95. That there is opportunity to expand the bowl wing in Queenstown with residential aged care services. Is there any ability for us to pursue those funding options?
THS is eligible.
Yeah.
We're not eligible.
We have to take THS to-
We've written to the Premier on numerous occasions now about this, and also after this letter, I think this letter has been sent to the Minister, to the Premier as well, and with regard that all they have to do is ask and they will receive.
And certainly we've indicated to Senator Urquhart and Premier Rockcliffe that they should have a chat, and it's disappointing that council has to be involved in trying to get funding for suitable health services when it's really a state and federal government problem.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, we'll move to the next item. Item 182. Annual delegation review. The recommendation is that council note the completion of the annual review of the West Coast Council delegations, which have been authorised by the General Manager under Section 22 of the Local Government Act 1993. For discussion, someone like to move that way, please? Move Councillor Graham, seconded Councillor Butterfield. Open for discussion. Any discussions on the matter?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I didn't see any
No.
changes in that policy from last time. It's pretty much the same, isn't it? Did we make any amendments? I couldn't see any.
No, it was just minor
No.
administrative
Yeah.
amendments.
Administration stuff, I think.
It's one of the ones that so you got you've got the policy coming up next where there's no amendments. This is just the noting report
Formal.
to say that under that policy I need to review the delegations each year,
Yeah.
and that I've done that.
You've done that.
There was only minor changes to the delegations reflecting staff in new positions. We we conducted a review on the compliance ones as well, didn't we? They looked,
Yeah.
so we review them all and make sure they're appropriate and current legislation, that type of thing. And every year there is some changes in legislation.
Any other discussions on the matter? We'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 183 is delegations. So this is delegation policy review version 4. The recommendation is that Council A approve and adopt policy WCC.018, policy delegation version 4, or B, refer to council workshop for further review. Someone like to move one way or the other, please?
I'll move option A.
Move. Option A, move Councillor Graham, second Councillor Newman. Any discussions on the matter, councillors?
I believe most of the, as the GM just said, most of the amendments are all legislative and outside of our scope anyway, so there's nothing for us there.
No further discussions on the policy. We'll put it to a vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, item 184 is media and communications policy. The recommendation is that Council A approve and adopt the reviewed WCC.016 media and communication policy, or B, refer to a council workshop for further review. Someone like to move one way or the other, please? I'd like to move B, refer it to the council, because I'd like to add a couple extra things to the policy with regard to
Things that are happening in our community really work on media and communication.
So just to be clear, this policy is not the community engagement policy. It's the policy about how
we
councillors use media.
Would I be right in saying, through you, Mayor, would I be right in saying that most of this is constrained by legislation?
Some of it's in the Local Government Act, some of it's under the Code of Conduct, which is regulation, and some of it's sort of WHS type things, and some of it's to protect council from defamation and other matters. So it is a combination.
it's just one thing I'd like to add in one section with regard to the channels of communicating information. That's all that I'd like to add to that, so we can get it out there a little bit formally into the community.
But like the GM said, would that be more our community engagement, or is that?
Well, it's in this
It's in here,
document. Yeah, it's in this policy, that's all.
No, channels for communicating.
So I've moved B. So I get a seconder for that, please. Oh, sorry, councillor. Okay. No other discussion on the matter? Put to a vote, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, we'll take that back to a workshop. Item 185 is safeguarding volunteering in Tasmania project. So the recommendation is that council note this report regarding the safeguarding volunteering in Tasmania project in collaboration with Volunteering Tas. Someone like to move that way, please? Move Councillor Graham, second Councillor Newman. Any discussions on the item, councillors? No discussion on, put it to a vote, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, item 186 is Innovation Fund sponsorship for the Queenstown Park Run. So recommendation is that council either approve $2,000 cash Innovation Fund sponsorship for the Queenstown Park Run, Tasmania, in the financial year 22-23, or reassess this application at the start of the 23-24 financial year when funds become available. Someone like to move one way or the other, please?
I'd like to move A, please.
Move. Councillor Ivanicki's moved A. Have we got a seconder for A? Seconded Councillor Jordan. Any discussions on the matter, councillors?
Sorry, I was just going to justify, I think the sooner we can get some money into their hands so that they can begin purchasing the equipment, the better. So that's my thinking behind endorsing A.
Although it's a one for health and safety aspect, is that something where we should be giving money? There's been other runs that have got their funds all by themselves. And it's specifically Queensland. It is not a West Coast event.
Well, there's two others they're proposing, so they're looking to try and do it in Zeehan and, as the other chap indicated, maybe in Strawn, so that's a double whammy. I mean, they've said that Zeehan is going to be self-funded, but if Strawn, if they do one in Strawn, we're going to be, there'll be another $2,000 there, you know. I don't know. It's a great thing. It is a good thing.
It is a good thing for our the health of our community.
Oh, we need
for
it.
recreation.
We need these things.
You know, and this is going to be in this financial year, which is in a bit of a pickle at the moment anyway. So
that was what I was going to say.
Strawn's could come into next year's if they do.
Well, so could this one. They're looking at an October start.
Oh yes.
So if the funds were available to them, say August, September, when we get our next budget down, it puts us in a financially perhaps more favourable position to support them. Why I was thinking B might be more appropriate given the latter stages of this budget.
Through you, Mayor, how much is left?
Well, there's not like a cap, but traditionally West Coast Council has spent $8,000 a year on the innovation. $6,000 a year on the innovation grants, so 3 innovation projects. We're at 6. We've spent 6 already this year. It's not so much about financial responsibility because $2,000 is not material to our budget. Additionally, whether the money is spent, it will go out, even if council approves it now, it will actually leave in the new financial year. If you approve it in July, it will go out in early August. Okay. It is more about council, whether council wants to set a precedent, for want of a better word, that on how they deal with these things. That's why we've presented it as 2 options, whether council wants to take a very hard line that no, we spend $6,000 a year and that's it. We don't consider any exemptions, or whether you don't. And that really is a matter for councillors, not for us. Yep.
I think this very clearly aligns with the health and active lifestyles that we're trying to promote. And I certainly don't want us to bypass it on a technicality. I do think get the money into their hands as soon as possible. They can start buying the equipment they need, they can train volunteers if they've got to get people trained up in first aid. These things will all take money, and if they need to wait until September, August, September, and then they'll have a turnaround to October.
Councillor, so we've got a motion for A. Got a seconder for A, so that's the motion on the table, unless someone wants to amend that motion. No amendment, so we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 187 is that council provide feedback to the draft Cradle Coast Regional Land Use Strategy. So we'll need a mover and a seconder for that, please, for discussion. Someone like to move that way, please. Move Councillor Graham, second Councillor McKay. Okay, open for discussion, councillors.
As I said in the workshop, 6 days to review a document of this capability. It's a really significant and in-depth document. 6 days is not enough to review this. But we've got until the 29th. I'll have a look at it, but there won't be much time to say too much. 6 days is not enough.
No, and I guess, you know, that's a state government that we're dealing with, that the less time people have got to review something, the less time they've got to make comments on it. But, you know, as was discussed during the workshop, a lot of it is administrative and grammar and spelling and changing of wording. So there's not a lot of change in
The impetus for the speed and for the amendments going through is not really from the West Coast. It's largely centred around our fellow councils at Latrobe, Devonport, Central Coast, because they've run out of growth corridor. So they've been pushing for very speedy amendments to particularly enhance the growth corridors around Port Sorell, Shearwater, Latrobe, because they've run out of residential. They've run out of residential lots.
Hence the impetus on rural housing, only in areas where it leads to further urban development, which is a little bit greedy and a little bit not much use to the rest of the state.
So council staff have been pretty heavily involved in this. It's managed by an oversight group that includes all the general managers, but largely these amendments are not of much consequence to the West Coast at all. They've been driven out of our more rapidly growing compatriots to the north. It is part of a much more ongoing process of planning reform that council has been more involved in, with the SPPs, what are the other ones called? The TPPs, that we have had more input on. And I understand that the review of all those, the statewide planning policies, and the other ones will continue.
Treasury Merriman's significant, and what else and engaged with us today was a reason. I think we've got our finger on the pulse in a fair sway of what's going on. So I think it's vitally important that we move forward.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor. Any other discussion on the matter? No discussion on, put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Item 188 is the rates resolution. The recommendation is that council approve and adopt the rates resolution Appendix 1 and 2 for the financial year ending 30th of June 2024. For discussion, council, someone like to move to discuss? Move Councillor McKay, second Councillor Ivanicki. Open for discussion, councillors.
Through you, Mayor, with the policy on the vacant land, I'm a bit concerned that we're recommending a higher rate for vacant land, and I don't really think we should penalise those people having vacant land. They're still paying rates, but that's just my opinion.
So the rates have been increased to the same rate as residential land?
So in the current rates resolution that staff have prepared, vacant land is the same as residential land. At the workshop, it was discussed that there is some argument that vacant land should be charged the same rate as commercial properties, which is so under the West Coast Council rate structure, we set the rate, and then residential land and vacant land currently get a discount to that rate, and agricultural land. We've included here some wording because it was discussed at the workshop. There was a sense from councillors that there should be a higher rate for vacant land. At the workshop, it was discussed that for two reasons. One is that the absolute value of vacant land on the West Coast is very low, so therefore the absolute rates on vacant land is quite low. The other was to act as a discouragement for people keeping vacant land and not developing it. There was some discussion around the need for council to be seen to be pushing for development of residential land since we are advocating so much on that. Therefore, we've included in here some wording if councillors wanted to do that. So that wording's currently not in the rates resolution. A councillor would need to move that as an amendment to the motion if they wanted to include it. We've just put it here to make it easy for those councillors if they did want to do that, because otherwise we'd be sitting here thinking about what the wording for the resolution would be. And that's the same with the mining rates.
And also the institutional accommodation with the mining.
No, institutional accommodation we've included in the current rates resolution.
Yeah, it's in there. So we've got a maximum of 11.5, sorry, a maximum of 10 with
10.
So
1.15.
Rates in general have been increased 10%, which is around our cost base increase. The 11.5% is the cap. So if you remember last year, we capped rates because some people would have had a rates increase of between 100 and 200% due to valuation increases. The cap is so that people don't have to pay. So rates are calculated on the basis of what the value of your property is times a certain percentage. 2 years ago, there was a revaluation and property values on the West Coast went up between 80 and 200 and something percent. So if we didn't put a cap in, some people's rates would have gone up 250% because the value of their property would have gone up 250%. This year, we're proposing the cap is slightly above the actual rates increase, just so some of that valuation increase starts flowing through to ratepayers. Because otherwise, in a couple of years' time, you'll have another revaluation, and that difference between the rates and the valuations will get larger and larger. And already this year, the remission provided under that cap will be over $1.2 million, $1.5 million. It is a large sum. So you need to start pulling that through. So if for the ratepayers that haven't had a valuation increase, that cap won't impact them. The rates will just go up to 10%. For those that have had a big valuation increase, there'll be a slight increase above that for the valuation.
Are there councillors? So with regard to the word vacant, so I guess we'll make an amendment to the rates resolution to remove vacant from in section appendix 2,
419.
which then would mean that it would be rated at commercial rates. Now that was, as David did say, it was discussed by us at the workshop that we've got a lot of vacant property around here that people are sitting on. Could be utilised for developing of houses, which we are crying out for. And unfortunately, there was a West Coast resident that was up in Burnie recently was homeless. So.
Yeah. So we're putting vacant from 8 cents to 18 cents on the dollar, basically, along that.
It would be
on page 419.
Yeah, so it'd go from 7.58 with a charge of 333, and for vacant land, the charge is the primary determiner there, up to 17.64.
Yep.
Any other discussions on the,
So what's the resolution, sorry, what's the motion now?
that we, well,
So you take a vote on the amendment.
amendment, yes,
Yes.
so we'll need to move.
Move that amendment. I'll move that amendment.
Move councillor Graham, seconded councillor Mackay, amend it to remove the word vacant from the relevant section in appendix 2. So any other discussion on that then, councillors? No other discussion on that, we'll put that amendment to the vote to start with. So, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And now we need to do the rates resolution in whole, don't we?
Which we had a mover and seconder for.
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yes,
So
we did.
So did you want to discuss the mining one, or
You want to discuss the mining one? Did we do any resolution around?
We're having it pretty hard, haven't we? We've, in terms of conversation and discussion, we've been around it a fair bit. Anybody else got anything to say about the mining?
Well, there was discussion at the workshop whether 25% was too high or whether.
So currently, in the current rates resolution, mines are like everyone else. Mines aquaculture, sorry, are like everyone else. It's 10%.
Oh, right, okay.
So if you wanted to, following the workshop, we included an option for you to increase it further via an amendment if you wanted to. Don't have to, but it's there. The wording in the amendment is based on a 25% increase, because we did have to pick a number to do the wording changes. But if you wanted to do something else, we could quickly calculate those for you.
I'm just going to say you costed that out as opposed to where it is now. And
No, it would change the budget significantly. So mining 20, it would be an additional $450,000 circa onto the mines overall.
We did have conversations at the workshop that we thought the 25 was too high.
so we haven't moved that amendment at this point in time.
No. So we need to move an amendment
If you want to.
if we want to, or we leave it at the 10% where it is now, or the same as what the increase in rates will be.
Which is 11.5.
11.5, yep. No other discussion on the matter? Councillors believe 11.5 is adequate for mining above?
No,
Yeah.
I don't.
Neither do I.
I do think these are giant multi-billion-dollar companies who are responsible to some degree for the decay of housing stock, for example. So asking for a little bit extra for our community to go back into our community, I don't know what the magic number is, but I don't think it should be the same as a residential rating. So I've been looking to other councils if they.
Somewhere between 11.5 and 25. What about 15?
15 sounds good.
15 does work.
15?
If you just wait a second and I'll.
Yeah, just we need to see what that looks like.
So it will mean that we
Keep
may have
discussing.
to remove something out of
Out of the
in the
budget.
plan, maybe one of our projects, but maybe they might fund it.
Henry's was a little bit higher, but I think 20.
That is 15. Palatable.
So that David's just doing some quick.
Oh, I'll just have to figure out the sense in the dollar. You can keep discussing.
So we've got 15% councillors, whether that's a,
It's still pretty reasonable, but I suppose if you're going to start climbing that ladder, you might want to do it slowly. But
Well, I think we should climb slowly because we've got other companies. And if we're going to increase the rates on residential villages, I think we're going to get more residential villages as well. So I think we need to increase charges and those that can need to pay more. But I think we need to do it a little bit cheaper.
yeah, there's always those discussions around, you know, our initial discussions with contributions to TMAC have turned around now. That 80 grand that we're getting back from there is bugger all compared to the contribution we're making to them elsewhere. So I don't have any fear about pursuing that now, but, you know, what difference does that make to the annual plan, David? 2%, 1%?
None. So I mean, the annual budget at the moment is based on 10%.
10%.
So the deficit that you see in your budget is 10%.
So the extra 3.5% is not going to claw a real lot back to the deficit, but it's going to potentially give a little bit more operational leeway. Not much, but a bit.
I guess one thing it does highlight too to the mining companies that we are interested in them being part of the community and the issues that we are facing in the community, and that, you know, they would be appreciative if they'd step up a little bit more, and some of our requests that we've made with regard to some of our infrastructure upgrades in our communities. We have had some companies, mining companies, that have said yes, they'll assist with certain infrastructure upgrades, and then at the last minute have pulled out, which has kept the council has had to take the full brunt of that. And of course, you know, if they were to put their hand up on some of these infrastructure spends, that we could put their name against the infrastructure as well, so they could be seen as this. If it was 15%, as Councillor Graham has recommended, that it's a start. If they don't come to the table, well, next year it may increase again. So at least it's something to say that we're not, you know, we are serious about them trying to be part of the community as well, and the issues we face.
And furthermore, we seek their advocacy for royalties to the regions.
Exactly, and that's one thing that I was about to say, that, you know, if they were to come on board and assist us with that, advocating with the government about some percentage of the royalties for regions, then that would assist immensely as well. But at the moment, they're not. Sorry?
To facilitate that relationship.
Yep.
In that aspect, more important to our future.
Yep.
As a council.
Okay, councillors,
I think we'll want to double check the figures. Yeah, I think that's right too. Maybe we could move the motion saying that the wording here, you want to replace 1.2b and 1.2c with, so this will be the amendment, Sam. Replace 1.2b, 1.2c with a cents in the dollar that represents a 15% increase compared to the previous financial year, and that will give us the chance to make sure it's all
right. Yep. Okay. Who moved it?
So no one's moved that one yet.
Councillor McKay.
Oh, so yeah. So
Okay. So you're happy with that amendment, Councillor McKay
Thank you very much.
and Councillor Ivanicki? So happy with that amendment that was just read out by the GM?
So that will change the mining and aquaculture to a 15% increase, and it will change the and it would change the institutional accommodation just to be aligned with that as well.
Yep. Over that, councillors?
Yeah.
Okay. No other discussion on the matter? We'll put it. Councillor? No?
Yeah,
I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Right, item 189 is the fees and charges for 2023-24. Recommendation is that council approve and adopt the fees and charges 2023-24 for the financial year ending the 30th of June 2024. Someone like to move that way, please, for discussion. Move Councillor Jordan, second to Councillor Hamer. Open discussions, councillors.
through you, Mayor. given that we don't have a regular RPT anymore, are we still keeping displays current out at the Strawn Airport?
It's the
The
displays.
brochure display?
Yeah, and Rome Wild updated with some. So we've got an MOU with Rome Wild because they do most of the pickups out of there for both RPT and non-RPT. So they keep it updated, and Bron goes out there as well every now and again.
Okay.
We are looking to do something with aircraft fees this year to align them more with how other airports do it. So at the moment we're doing it per tonne, which is really inefficient. We'll get someone in to do this year to do it by aircraft type. Just makes it a lot easier for processing because the system that deals with the aircraft coming in doesn't weigh the aircraft, it just picks it up by type. That's why we've got the additional ones in there for me to determine fees by aircraft type, because we'll try and do that change this year. We have to get in a...
Air Service Australia has a
Yeah.
system for that, and
Yep, so we've got to...
demonstrate to the credit card of the pilot. I mean, it's
Yep.
yeah.
So we just have to get someone in to do it on our... There's a consultant guy.
At the moment, CASA work off plane registrations.
Yeah.
Remote areas, we had the system here for to do that, so until we get that system, we'll still have to work on the tonnage.
Yeah, so we'll look at trying changing that this year.
Okay, that's all right. Every flight has a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know where that registered aircraft landing because it's in its flight. You know what I mean?
It is.
An Air Services track record, it's in its own.
Yeah, the billing service through CASA doesn't allow us to do that.
What about Air Services then?
No, because it comes from CASA through to Air Services, and then Air Services pass it on to us. Until the program's switched over or upgraded, then we pick up what it is.
Okay.
Any other discussions on the fees and charges, councillors?
I have something
Yes,
there.
councillor.
The Macquarie Heads nightly fee, I see hasn't changed.
Where are we?
Just because I think this might be the first month in a while we haven't got a letter about the fee. So I think I take that as a win if it hasn't gone up. That's something perhaps that we should promote.
Well, we're 25 a night, aren't we? 25?
What, did we change that at all? I can't remember.
Yeah, I know.
The camping fees, yeah.
What page, sir?
$4.25, $15
Oh, 15.
nightly fee. Oh no, sorry, that's Macquarie. 25.
Yeah, I think there has been an increase there, hasn't
Yeah,
it? It was
20
$5, wasn't it?
It's $20 last year.
Yeah, it's gone up 5.
Yeah.
Off peak we haven't changed.
Which is 10. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've put it up. We have put it up. So that's not the good news story you're hoping. The main reason for that is we are still pretty full over summer. So we're not experiencing a lack of demand in summer. We have a lack of demand in winter.
In the winter.
And we are spending money to improve the sites down there. We've recently put in a couple of tanks to improve the toilets and things like that.
The annual's gone from, what was it, $12.40 last year to $13.50. It's gone up just a
Yeah.
little bit. Eh?
Yeah, so but obviously for license holders, that fee doesn't change. So you've set it. Oh, there's a CPI, I think, ratchet in there, but their fee was set for all those years. Most of the fees and charges have only gone up by the 8 point whatever it was CPI to December.
Yep.
The ones that have gone up a little bit more, we did push up dangerous dogs a little bit more, just because we're spending a ton of money on dangerous dogs and not recouping that. I think our loss on animal control this year will be 30,000-ish. Yeah, that was the main ones we did.
Planning and building fees are just CPI, don't they?
Yep. We're doing okay with planning, Alison, in terms of cost recovery.
Very well.
Yeah, we're making money.
But that's due to the increase in applications and high level.
Yeah.
Applications.
So we tend to make a little bit on the very big applications because there's that percentage there. So we've had over this year a couple of big mining applications that really help us out. Renison did a something out there. What was the
Paste
one?
plant.
Paste plant?
Yeah.
That was pretty good. And MMG's got one in for a concrete something, a slurry thing. So,
Yeah.
we're doing well with that.
I guess, yeah, the one, and with regard to the Macquarie Heads, the weekly fee there, that's,
Still pretty
That's-
reasonable.
it's very reasonable. When you pay that same amount of money up the northeast, when you've got no toilet, well, no water, and a toilet, you've got to provide your own amenities too. So.
And we've just tripled the water capacity there at Macquarie Harbour, at Macquarie Head.
So, yeah, thanks, councillor. We'll put, no other discussions on the matter, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried. Okay, item 190 is, the recommendation is the council adopt the West Coast Council annual plan for 23-24 as presented. Someone like to move that way, please? Move councillor Jordan, second to councillor Ivanicki. Open for discussion, councillor. Any discussions on the annual plan? The proposed annual plan. No discussions? And yet again, we've haven't had a lot of feedback with regard to the annual plan. A couple of submissions there, which is good to see that at least we are getting some submissions with regard to that.
Some people are reading it anyway.
Yeah, some people are reading it, yes. Okay, if there's no other discussions on the matter, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against, carried. Okay. Okay, item 191 is matters proposed for closed meeting. So, council, the recommendation is that items 193 to 200, 23 discussed by council in closed session. As listed, someone like to move that way, please? Move councillor Jordan, second to councillor Newman. Put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against, carried. Okay. Thank you, members of the public, for your attendance. It's a pretty long meeting tonight, so thank you for your. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Sharing the cause.